I'm never gonna be taken back by him finding a weird pocket.
Yeah.
I'm expecting it. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking. All right, how you gonna jump in this one?
Mhm.
What you gonna do with this record? It's the approach for me that makes him interesting as well. He could be mumbling, but how he mumbles it for me at times is really, really important, and how it's delivered is really, really important. I think he's one of the people that I'm confident in. 9 times out of 10, when he delivers, he gonna deliver.
What's up, geniuses? Welcome back to For the Record, and I'm your host, Rob Markman. Now, we waited just about 3 long years, but ScHoolboy Q is finally back with his new album, CrasH Talk. It's out today, so you know I had to bring a panel to come talk about it. All right, first up, no stranger to For the Record, my man from the Grassroots podcast, Brandon Hall, a.k.a. Killer BH.
Yo,
what's up? You get mad when you say Killer BH?
Nah, I'm used to it now, man. I'm used to it. I can't escape it.
This is my man. Definitely, man. And next up, we have media personality, no stranger to the show. Sometimes controversial, but always from the heart, my man Jameer Pond. What up?
Peace and blessings. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Good. And last but finally, never, ever least,
right.
From Power 105, DJ, I love her spirit. I love your interviews.
Oh, thank you.
What you're doing right now on Power 105, DJ Nyla Symone. What's up? Welcome to For the Record.
It's good, guys.
Hey. Your baby is popping today.
No, I'm about to lay him down first.
I was about to say, she was laid.
Laid.
That shit make me wish I had a hairline again.
Damn. Speaking of hairlines, let's get into a ScHoolboy Q. My man ScHoolboy Q. What a set. It was really perfect. CrasH Talk is out. You know, usually we come into these things the morning after and just kind of talk about an album. Unluckily for ScHoolboy Q, lucky for us, it leaked a little bit early, so we had a little more time, I think, to sit with this than any other album that we usually talk about. But I just want to get into, what were the expectations coming into CrasH Talk? It's been about 3 years since Blank Face. Brandon, what were you expecting with Q in this album?
Vulnerability. I wanted to know what happened. Like, he put out a great project prior to, and then went ghost. And then you started hearing things about depression. You start hearing things about him battling demons and all these things. I wanted to know what happened. I wanted to know how he got up out of it. Even if he didn't get up out of it, I at least wanted to hear the struggle.
Jameer, did you have any expectations coming in?
Vulnerability, definitely, to piggyback. But also, like, I think Q is mysterious in the fact that, and he put out a tweet about it, he, like, kills off the last person, or he was during, like, the last record. So he put out a tweet like, drug addicted, Q is dead, Fat Q is dead, Groovy Tony dead, this is CrasH Talk Q. And so I didn't know what that meant. And because he has been going through, you're talking about the death of Mac and depression, and, you know, he's getting himself rid of drugs, playing golf now, brother playing golf. I didn't know what to expect with this project. And so I'm just glad that he's able to ever evolve. He's one of those artists that continues to do that.
Nyla, did you have any expectations coming in?
I didn't necessarily have any expectations, but I was kind of surprised that it was kind of feature heavy. Like, I thought he would be more like intimate, since he's going through so much right now.
You know, because he had talked about, he did a interview on the Breakfast Club, Power 105, shout out to Charlamagne, Yee, Envy, the homies over there. He had talked about, because it's funny, I think a lot of people saw what he was going through. We know that he pushed the album back. He said that he recorded 3 different versions of this album. Mac's death really hit him close to home. And then he even pushed the album back a week or two because of Nipsey's death. And admitted that he even changed the video or scrapped the video idea that he had just out of respect for Nipsey. Unclear what was in the video, but Nipsey's death also weighing heavy on him. He said something on the Breakfast Club that I've been thinking a lot to myself lately, and I felt like maybe was a guiding principle for this album. Is he said one, that he didn't want to be depressed anymore.
Right.
And he said the quote is, depressed kids love depressed music, and that just keeps you in a dark place. He also tweeted that this is the happiest he's been while releasing an album.
Right.
So he admits that he was in a dark place, but just doesn't want to be there anymore, and maybe willed himself out of it. I don't know if that's possible. But it goes back to the vulnerability. Is vulnerability and depression the same thing? Were you looking to see that kind of somber reflection?
Yeah. To me, it is, only just because when I think vulnerability, I think about, like we talked off air, I go back to the essence of hip hop and artistry. I'm used to artists going through something and expressing it any place or everywhere in their music, I should say. So when I don't hear that and I'm waiting for it and you see all these things, it's kind of a letdown for me just because I connect with the artist. I'm following your journey. I'm rooting for you. And I would like to hear how you got up out of it because maybe it could help me in the future or maybe it could help somebody in the future. And I just feel like it just fell short a little bit. It touches on it and it hints at certain things, but he doesn't really go in depth with darkest moments. And I felt like for his audience, I think they needed that.
And I know you have a point to make, but I want to add on to that.
Yeah.
Is that fair for us as fans to expect that from an artist? If he has to put himself in a hole,
right,
in order to deliver what we need, who's right, who's wrong, at what cost?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, those are all like that. That has been a constant theme in music. Like if we talk about Eminem, sober Eminem is less appealing, and we want to hear less from sober Eminem than drug-riddled Eminem. Same thing with Mary. People claim they don't want to hear a happy Mary J. Blige.
Yeah.
They want to hear that sunken, depressed, I'm going down type of Mary J. Blige. So when you have artists that you're familiar with who are going through struggle, or that you publicly see go through struggle, you want to hear a little bit about that. But I wanted to just make a point that Q actually said that, he changed the album a whole bunch of times. One version was just like hella introspective. And he had mentioned that he was like, ain't nobody want to really hear that. So through changing that, he said that he blended both fun records, party records, and also like the deep kind of introspective records together.
Now, did you have a point?
I was just going to say, I think your original question was, I don't think vulnerability and depression are the same thing. So the fact that this album isn't dark, like I'm kind of happy to see that because it's him getting out of it.
Yeah.
Like, just because he was sad doesn't mean he has to like share that.
Bro, he played golf, man.
Right.
He played golf, bro.
But there were moments. What were some of the moments that, because you said he did touch on it. There are moments. I feel like he dips in and then out. A lot of songs are short. A song like "Dangerous" with Kid Cudi is one verse. What were some of the highlights? What are some of the things that stood out for us that we liked about CrasH Talk with our first couple of listens?
Production for me is solid.
Yeah.
Production for me is solid. I think it was great production selection. I think even with some of the short records, I like them. And I'm 50-50 on the short records just because I wanted to hear more as a fan.
Gang was tough,
Gang. I'm like, why did you not finish this record?
Yeah.
But it's so dope. I feel like Gang, when it ends and goes right into Tail.
It's good. That's the production. That's why
it's a great transition.
Yeah.
But just me being selfish, I wanted to hear more as just being a hip hop, Q fan. I just wanted to hear more in that respect. But I think overall the project it's good. It's good that he is in a good space, and I feel like I hope that this will help to elevate him a little bit more. Because I feel like he's talented, and I feel like he was one of the front runners for quite some time, and then got kind of shelved a little bit with everything that's happening in his camp. And I think this is a good opportunity now, being in a good headspace, to kind of capitalize on it.
Yeah.
Records that stood out for you?
Records that stood out for me, CrasH. What's the last record? Attention, Fire, Gang.
Great storytelling on Attention. That's the one where he talks about being at the Grammys with his daughter, sitting next to Hov, telling him he's the best rapper.
Like, I love that. That's the introspective points that I like, from Q. Like, he can go there.
Yeah.
But what I think about this album is that it's a transitional album. Last time I was here, we talked about Middle Child, right? And how, like...
Oh, I remember.
Dreamville
was holding my mention.
It wasn't me.
They said, don't have Jameer back.
They didn't say that. Not me. But Q is the exemplification of that middle child syndrome or what's going on. He's young enough to still reach back and get 21 and Lil Baby, but he's also old enough where he's starting to become part of that OG generation right now. So, like, he's in a transitional period, and you can hear it out throughout the record. It's like, I could go trap, but I could also go lyrical. Right. I could go poppy, rhythmic, or I could go introspective. So it's a good balance for him right now. I feel like the middle children of the game really are the stakeholders right now.
It's funny that you mentioned that on a song like CrasH. First of all, Boy Wonder killed that beat. I would have never thought to use Royce the 5'9" and DJ's Premier sample that record and kind of slow it down in that real syrupy way was super dope. But he has a lyric on there, right? Little rappers ain't impressive. Your tax bracket ain't impressive. You buy a chain but won't buy land. The hashtag should say desperate.
Yeah, that was hard.
So
that was hard.
Middle child.
Exactly.
Like, he could see both sides of it. Nyla, what stood out to you, especially too, and as a fan, but I also want your perspective as a DJ as well, because you're out here in these clubs, you're out here in these spots, you're spinning these records. You know what people respond to in a very real way in the club, but this record also feels more than that. So if you can give us both sides.
I think he had a lot of hard records, like beat wise, going crazy. I like Numb. I like I really like the song at the end, Attention, that talks about his daughter. And there's a song right before that, before the song with Lil Baby. You know what it's called?
Is that CrasH?
It might be CrasH.
It might be
It might be CrasH.
Yeah.
That song is probably my favorite out of the whole tape.
Yeah.
Dope.
Yeah.
Okay. See the vulnerability, because me and you were talking about that. You know, I don't think he dives all the way in, Brandon. Right? Like he definitely, like a song like Dangerous. Feels like
perfect record to do that.
But maybe he gave us just enough. Let me see if I find these lyrics, right? So for Dangerous, you know, and first of all, we seen the very real thing is, you know, we seen Mac Miller pass away, and this is his best friend, one of his best friends, to a drug-related death. You know what I'm saying? Outside of that, we seen Little Peep. We see the epidemic of what drugs are doing to this generation, and Q being very open about himself being on drugs. You know, oxymoron, like I was on oxys at the time. This is why oxymoron sounds like this. So not only do you have to battle with your friend passing, but it's to a drug-related death, and quite possibly maybe some of the drugs that you are on or have been on.
Right.
It's a lot to reconcile with.
Sure.
But you know, again, on Dangerous with Kid Cudi, he has this line: "Took this pill and swallowed me whole. Pinch me on my arm is a heaven of fun. If I don't come back, had a hell of a run." Like, so for the moments that he lacks, and this song is just one verse. Kind of with lyrics like that, I'm like, man, I don't know if I needed two verses. Like, I feel like he hit it.
So here's my thing, right? Because I get what you're saying. My thing is, very rare do we have those type of moments, especially from artists like this that you haven't heard from it in quite some time. Context is important. And when you talk in context, when you drop such a heavy line like that, I'm intrigued. I want to know more now. I need to know, and that it's not a negative. I care. You know what I'm saying? Like I need to know what happened to you. The journey for me is important when it comes to artistry and how you express it. And I feel like I'm saying, he expresses certain things. I just don't think, and maybe it's not a comfortability. It's a comfortability thing. You know, everyone has different coping mechanisms. Everyone deals with death or just even depression differently. So maybe this is the first phase of him dealing with it. Maybe we'll get more. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, but I like the direction, and I see where he's going. I just wanted a little bit more, because we haven't heard such anything in such a long time.
Yeah, and I actually think that he moves on from that. Like, next record won't even sound the same. Depending on the spot in his life that he's in. Like, I think that he gave us a little glimpse, and then he'll eventually probably move on, depending on where he is.
It definitely kind of feels like this album's like float like a butterfly sting. Like he's kind of weaving in and out, and more so rather than giving us the heavy dose of everything. Like, he's picking and choosing his spots.
Right.
A song like Tales, right? Again, I'm just gonna go into lyrics. The second verse to me is amazing because he puts himself maybe in an alternate reality where he's not ScHoolboy Q, but succumbs to just the pitfalls that's out there, right? Like, you know, I watch him lose his life right in front of his kids. We keep the cycle back and forth. The demon smothers our gifts. They put percentages in front of us, wouldn't give us a chance. The only way we'll see 30 unless we live in the can. Probably miss my mom's funeral and my daughter a hoe because the man in the house ain't a man no more. Like,
those are my favorite lyrics of the album.
That verse is crazy.
Yeah. He like you said, he's giving us spurts. Like, he'll give you spurts of, but he's always done that. I think we just more so wanted to hear him from a vulnerable place. I think he's always been like, I give you party records, I give you fun records, even Lies with YG and my guy
Ty
Dolla Sign. He's gonna give you all those things, and he's giving you spurts, but we just wanted to hear more. Like, bro, how you doing?
Because it's gone so long.
Right, you're not on drugs no more. Mac died of drugs. A lot of things have happened. Your daughter's growing, becoming a person, you know? So we wanted to hear all of that. but we didn't. We heard a collection of songs that kind of it's a transition album.
Right.
Yeah.
Those were the songs that didn't work for me. Like Chopsticks, if I'm being honest,
I hate
doesn't
that song.
work for
Yeah.
me.
Yo,
I
I
could do
hate
without
that
I'm
song.
good.
At all.
And I just want to go on the record for the record and say that is the worst or most underutilized Travis Scott feature
Yo,
I've ever heard in my life. Man. Like,
Listen,
I'm keeping it a buck.
Nah.
I heard that shit and I was
Facts,
like,
though.
fam, you did this with Travis?
No
Yeah.
word,
Like,
though.
out of
That's
all people,
not
when,
good.
I mean, Travis didn't give a lot. First of all,
But that's my
I think Kendrick wrote the hook because
Kendrick did write the
there
hook.
was a leaked
Yeah.
version
Yeah.
of Kendrick doing a similar
Yeah,
hook.
maybe Travis didn't need to do it. That's all because it
But
felt like
yeah.
Is Travis really great with the features though? Like I feel like Travis is one of those artists that's great on his own shit. Like how much? And I'm legitimately asking the question because I'm thinking about it as I'm asking it. How much does a Travis feature bolster when he's featured on your record, minus when he puts together?
I think it
a
depends
project?
on the record.
Yeah, I think it depends on the record, and I think
Name
it depends
3.
on the sound. Name 3 Travis records.
Where Travis
Featured and
did
like made it
Love
better.
the Law, him on Scissors
Yeah.
record.
I like
Okay.
I felt like
Portland.
elevated that record.
Portland.
That's the only one I could think of,
Fire.
but that
Mm.
didn't go
And
crazy.
what's the other
That
shit?
wasn't it.
Nah, it didn't
felt-
hit.
It
Like,
didn't
it didn't
hit.
hit, but that's one of my.
was
personal
cool, but it
favorites.
didn't hit.
I don't know. I think
I give you two. I
I
got
think
two.
Travis is
Yeah.
the type.
I'll stick to it.
I'll say two.
Yeah.
I'll say two.
I think Travis is the type of artist where he's so much kind of masterminds. It kind of feels like, especially when you listen to this album, it feels like mad scientists
Yeah.
in a lab because there's so many deliberate
Yeah.
elements.
Mhm.
And I feel like Travis as a featured artist is limiting for him because he's doing you a service
That's a
rather
good point.
than whatever. And then in that essence, it can be hit or miss. I think on Chopsticks, it felt like a miss.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
He
saying?
could have mumbled the bridge, or, it's lit. The bridge. He could have went on the
Yeah,
bridge.
it's a lot of things that I feel like he could have done. I feel like it was blanket. It was so
Right.
curt.
And
it
that
just-
being the song he put out first kind of had me nervous. That's why I had no expectations for the album.
Well,
I'm like,
Num Num
oh.
came out first,
Num
right?
Num
And
Num
then
Num
Chopsticks.
and Chopsticks, yeah.
Yeah, it was like Num Num came out. It was like, oh,
Okay, yeah.
The video was
Chopsticks,
crazy.
I
Yeah,
was
I
like,
think
Chopsticks.
Num Num's hard.
The
No,
Chopsticks
Num Num-
video
Yeah, Num
is
Num.
dope.
Yeah.
I like the whole kind of cinematic vibe to
Yeah.
it, but the song just doesn't
Yeah.
do anything. And Lies, I know you like Lies with
like Lies.
with Ty Dolla and
Yeah.
YG.
Yeah.
Even that, like the song is great, and maybe that's one of those things too. Me being a New York guy, maybe like I could see that as a total
Hitting in
vibe
LA?
out in
Yeah.
Cali,
Yeah,
and LA.
yeah.
It just kind of felt out of place for me.
Well, that's
on
the
this
old.
album.
That's why this project is weird because I feel like the structure of the project is cool because certain records go and blend well with other records. But
Yeah.
then when you think continuity, I don't really know where this album is supposed to take me. like,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? I hear party records and I hear deep introspective records somewhat, and then I hear interludes of sorts. I don't know. I don't know.
Sonically, though, I think the album is pleasing, and I really like the Ty Dolla $ign record.
Yeah.
Like,
Lies-
that's the
yeah.
song
That-
they should have put out.
That's
I
what I
like
said. I would
Lies.
have
Yeah.
with that record for me. As soon
I
as
like it
heard
better than
that, I said,
I like it better than Chopsticks.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
You
yeah.
like everything better than Chopsticks.
It fell short. We all admit that.
Yeah.
We all can admit that.
I don't think we need to beat a dead horse.
Motherfucker. Yeah.
So what do you think about Chopsticks?
My next question.
But he did say one thing that he made a valid point. And I think he said this in his Breakfast Club interview, and then he did one with Big Boy, and I forget which one he said it in. But it goes back to each of the 3 albums being different, each of his 3 major label albums. Oxymoron, he said, was this album that he had hits. He had like
Yep.
Collard Greens and Man of the Year.
Yep.
And he was able to tour off of that, and the tours
Man
went
of the
way up.
year.
Yeah.
And he sold a lot of records on that. And then
Groovy Tony.
Yeah.
people were kind of unhappy and was like, oh, we want some of that real
Yeah.
shit. And then he does Blank Face, which
Yeah.
is full of that, totally
Yeah.
conceptual album, from beginning to end for the most
Check
part.
for it.
Didn't have the hits, and he said the reaction wasn't the same, but it was critically acclaimed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And again, I think too, as pundits, critics, people in the industry, and fans who are on social media and very loud and vocal, a lot of times we speak out of both sides of our face, right?
Yeah.
So when you give the really successful album, no, we want that underground shit, and then when you do that underground shit, we don't support it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He said that this was the first album that he made, and whether he's saying it to sell the album, he said this is the first album I made for me, and this is the happiest I've been
Right.
with making an album because I always try to cater to different audience,
Right.
and this was the album where I just
Yeah.
stopped catering.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
I like that because artists don't often get that opportunity to do that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? How often do you see an artist that be able to have creative expression to that, to the
Mhm.
core of himself? I like that. I just wonder where the direction goes next. with this.
I think he'll figure it out.
I think he will too.
Well, we're gonna have to wait another 3 years.
But that's what I'm saying. I just don't want to wait that long. Is my point. That's my only thing.
You know, the one thing that also jumped out, and you could, and maybe this goes back to Brendan's point. You guys can agree or disagree. Is he often? I read the GQ article and so the Breakfast Club interview and the Big Boy interview, and he kind of talks about rap or going to the studio as a job.
Yeah.
And it is. It's how he makes money. It's how he feeds his family. But he's like, yo, I go play golf, and then I go to the studio. I go to work. So I don't know. We often also hear artists talk about the studio as therapy.
Yeah.
Maybe for him, the studio, the music is just not the way that he's dealing with it in other ways. And this is my job. This is not my diary. Yeah. So to speak. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
So, all right, let's say we go with that, right? Do you think that impacts the music though?
Yes.
Think about it. Because again, when you talking just the essence of music, expression, when you don't have that connection with it, when you're starting, and I think this is a common rule for any job that you're in, right? Quote unquote job. The moment it starts to feel like work,
you back off.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And maybe that's what he did for this 3 years. Maybe, it took for him to say, yo, I need a break to get my mind right and everything else. But that's my thing. You got to be careful when you start to get into that type of status because then things change. You know what I'm saying?
I think there are artists who live in the studio and artists who escape from that. Like, he's one of those people who I feel like may have had a foundation before hip hop, and he knows where his foundation is. So that's why he's so comfortable with touring for 2 years and then not being seen for 2 years, because he knows who he is. He knows his life. He knows where his joy is provided. And that's in his daughter and his family.
I like that was a bar, George.
Yeah.
George, I see you.
I like the fact that he can do that, but I do agree we never really get to, except for maybe the earlier albums like Habits and Contradictions, Setbacks, and like the mixtapes rather. But we never really get to see who Q is because Q's ever evolving outside of the limelight. And when he comes back, it's usually maybe a different sound, a kind of a more now sound, a more introspective sound. So we really don't, we're not familiar with, but it's also like that with a lot of TD artists.
I could appreciate that too. Is not,
I like that.
Not giving you the same thing every time out. Like,
right.
I take this time off to reinvent myself and figure it out. One of the things that we didn't talk about, and I just want to give him credit for, if nothing else, I think Q is one of the best at finding pockets.
100%.
Oh yeah,
100%.
I think
100%.
the flows that he comes up with are so inventive. Like
100%.
I really don't think he gets kind of the credit for being a pure rapper, because oftentimes we put melody these days in front of lyrics,
right?
And I think he's able to give both. He gives dope rap melodies, dope rap flows. I think about his song Break the Bank off of Oxymoron. It's still one of the coldest flows of the last 10 years on that record alone. And I think he does that a lot on this album. I think the even just the different pockets that he finds, even more so than what he's saying, is super ill.
Yeah. Diversity is what you know him to have. You know what I'm saying? Like that, I'm never gonna be taken back by him finding a weird pocket. Yeah. I'm expecting it. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking. All right, how you gonna jump in this one? What you gonna do with this record? It's the approach for me that makes him interesting as well. He could be mumbling, but how he mumbles it for me at times is really, really important, and how it's delivered is really, really important. I think he's one of the people that I'm confident in. 9 times out of 10, when he delivers, he gonna deliver.
Delivery is fine. Like that 5200, like the
like,
flow on that shit.
I agree.
I brought that shit back a good 4 times on the way here. Like I was like, yo, this record is hard.
And then being able to find something in that pocket, because a lot of people find those flows like. Travis is also good at finding the pocket and flows, but it comes off mumbles a lot of the time. Like it's almost that they're not real words. Like I'm more focused on the flow and the vibe of it.
Right.
And Q finds the flow in the pocket and then fills it in with something that's really gonna hit home.
And that's why I feel like, again, the middle child thing kind of goes to him, because he's always been able to find a pocket that's relatable to today, but always giving you lyrics and flow of something that I can appreciate, you know what I'm saying? So there's always something for somebody. Right. He's very good at that, and I think he knows that, especially when he approaches like new projects.
But what takes him to the next level? That's my thing. What
consistency? I think
But
'cause
what's the next level? I don't even know if he wants the next level. I think he's a dope rapper. Like we were
Yeah.
talking off the air. This and I don't know why. Forgive me, it's just so random. But it kind of reminds me this album of Cool Breeze, East Point Greatest Hits, which is an underground rap album that not many people remember. But if you go back and listen, it was dope. Cool Breeze was in the Dungeon Family,
right.
in the camp with Outkast.
Yeah.
It was just a dope rap album. You know what I'm saying? And this kind of reminds me of.
I think as an artist, you want to break out of that. You want to get to the next level. And I'm thinking, if nothing else, if it's not even about financial gain, I'm thinking of a competitive nature. I'm thinking about competitive. Like your job is to want to be number one.
I get that, but since it took him 3 years just to put this project out, being through what he's been through, I don't even think like that's like the motive anymore.
Right.
And that's why I think it's unfair. I think it's like kind of selfish I forget the point that you made that was like he should be in the studio putting out, relieving it as therapy instead of doing other things. Like I think that's selfish of us to even say.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll admit that it's selfish. I'm not.
Because-
Let me be clear. I'm
fans, you
fully
want
aware.
that.
That's selfish.
It's P&B Rock over here.
Yeah, I'm keeping it a buck. I know that it's selfish. That's just the fan in me for him. It's not like I don't want. If it's a choice of make this music or die, like you know what I'm saying, like fam, this is a no brainer. Like I don't want that.
Where does this fit? Or TDE makes great moments. Obviously, Kendrick sets the mark for most of every artist in hip hop in general. You know what I'm saying? He's at the top of the totem pole. When SZA drops, it's a moment. I think J-Rock's last album was a moment, and Redemption. It was really what the album said, and seeing him win the Grammy and all of that. Where does this fall within kind of what TDE's doing?
I think it falls at the moment because again this is fresh.
Yes.
But at the moment I don't think it's gonna like hit the mark, so to say, as like a flag in the sand for TDE Records. I think it's a good album. It's a solid album. But like I've been saying, it's a transitional album. So I feel like maybe the next Q album will be the one that like boom.
Damn, we ready to talk about the next Q album.
No, but
I get you.
You see what I'm saying? Like I think it's a bridge to something greater. Like I don't think that he's reached his potential or peak yet.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? He's still got a lot of power.
Do we know? He talked also about Kendrick's involvement doing the ad libs, helping him to kind of sequence beats and stuff like that. Yeah. Do we hear that? Is it really apparent on this album, or do you see Kendrick's or hear Kendrick's fingerprints?
Two records from a production perspective, yes, but when I'm thinking flows and when I'm thinking song structure, no. Yeah, maybe. I'm still saying no. No,
it feels like a Q album.
It feels like a Q album. It feels very organic to him. So no, I don't hear a Kendrick cadence. At least I don't.
All right, let's go around. Just final thoughts on the album. Like if you want to put a cap on it. Nyla, what do you feel about ScHoolboy Q CrasH Talk?
I agree with what he said. I think CrasH Talk is a good album. I don't think it's gonna be like a game changer. It's not the redemption album for J-Rock. Like it's not gonna take him to the next level. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just glad he put something out and that, he's moving forward.
Yeah. I think it's a good album, solid album. I'm not sold on the fact that this is a game changer. I think Q also had a great moment with Oxymoron as far as commercially. I thought lyric and content wise, Blank Face was amazing. Yeah. This is like a solid album, but I don't think overall it beats those albums in terms of impact and being like a stronghold for who ScHoolboy Q is.
Yeah. I think it's a good reintroductory album.
Yes.
I also think if the pendulum swings in his favor, it could be an album of that standard that will change how we look at him just because people are rooting for him.
Absolutely.
Now hearing his story
Absolutely.
and hearing what he had been through and all these trials and tribulations. So it could work in his favor where we could be dubbing it as it's okay, but the masses could be like, yo, this is amazing. Like we've never heard anything like it. So it could work, but if I'm doubling down on my thought.
as a fan.
Yeah, as a fan, I'm
Yeah.
doubling down on my thought, and I'm sticking to the fact that it's a great reintroductory album, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing where he goes next. And I hope to Nyla's point, we don't gotta wait 3 years.
Agreed.
I get it, but I really, really hope we don't gotta wait another 3 years.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. And me, I think it's a dope album. I think it's a dope rap album, and,
Yeah.
and I
Yes.
feel like
Yeah.
we don't get many. I think we're in an era where everything. I feel like people don't want to hear rap no more.
Yeah.
People don't want to celebrate rap
melody.
music.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like we celebrate everything
It's a
else.
vibe,
but
Rob.
rap
It's
music.
a vibe, man.
Or it's just about singles, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody puts together like real
Right.
projects.
So I'm hoping
Yeah.
it's a dope rap album to me. You know, if I liken it to sports, I think it's a solid 28-point game. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
super solid.
And that's respectable.
You might not have the top 10 sports center highlights.
Right.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, with the dunks,
But you was in threes?
you was killing the stats.
Rap, you was in threes,
Yeah.
you know?
That's how it feels. Nah, yo, I love these moments. And again, you know, I think, of course, I preface it with the album just came out.
Yeah.
So
It
these are
just
initial
came out.
gut
Right,
reactions.
right.
But these are the conversations that I think fans are having this week in the barbershop with each
Mhm.
other. I think these are the conversations that we have on Twitter with each other
Yeah.
or the group chat. There's always kind of these, well, what did you think about it? Because we're excited about the album.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to sit here with you guys and talk about it. So thank you.
Thank you for
Thanks
having
for
us
having
on,
us.
man.
Yeah, man. Go check out that ScHoolboy Q CrasH talk out now and hit us up in the comments. Let us know what you think and tune in next week for the record.